This is Action News with Nancy Osborne, Rich Rodriguez, Dan Taylor Sports, and Angelo Stollis with the weather. From Central California's news leader, this is Action News, live at 5.
We don't need children to be reading things like this that if they're not maybe real solid in their own way.
2 books get the boot from a local school. Are they too much for students to handle? Good evening. The school board in the Fresno County community of Laton has temporarily banned 2 books from the classrooms of Laton High.
Board members are concerned about what the students are reading in the wake of the Columbine school massacre. Action News reporter Gene Hagenson joins us live with more on a story you'll only see here on Action News. Gene?
Well, Nancy, here are the 2 books. Bless Me Ultima, it's a boy's coming-of-age story in Mexico, and Fallen Angels, a story about black soldiers in the Vietnam War. The school board feels both of these books contain too much violence and profanity, and in the case of Bless Me Ultima, hints of witchcraft. The conflict in this small, conservative town is over what the kids are learning in school.
It's too bad the students didn't.
Students in Carol Bennett's freshman English class had been reading this book, Bless Me Ultima, by Rodolfo Anaya.
We had added that book because we felt it reflected the Hispanic literature that we wanted to include in our curriculum. 70 to 80% of our students are Hispanic.
Bennett's had used the same book last year, and it's listed on the state of California's approved reading list for 9th graders. But the story is too strong for local school board president Delbert Mello.
Some of the profanity that is, some of the words that are used are definitely not words that we allow the kids to say just walking on campus or talking to another person or administrator. They would be sent to the office for it. So why are we allowing it to be, in the classroom?
Students we spoke with didn't share his concerns over the language.
Those were nothing compared to what we hear on campus, and all of a sudden they're going to say we can't read a book just because it has words. I didn't get that.
The school board also found violent passages in the book offensive and said in light of what happened in Colorado, kids don't need to be reading that sort of thing. There's also concern over the depiction in the book of a Mexican faith healer. Board President Delbert Mello says that could lead kids to witchcraft.
If they're not real solid in their own beliefs and their religion, or their faith, I should say, depending on what that is, it could also, at this age, I feel, tend to lead them the wrong way.
Personally, I'm terrified by what's going on. I think it's pretty scary when we start having book banning.
Now, the school district says they aren't actually doing any book banning. What they're doing is simply taking the books out of circulation until they can appoint a review commission of citizens and educators to sit down and take a good look at these books and find out what's in them. But so far, what we've found is that most people haven't even read the books. There is a Xerox copy of a few pages out of one of the books, and they've highlighted some of the swear words in it, and which are really not, well, it depends on your point of view, not terribly offensive or not. General reaction in the community is, well, the parents who actually sign permission slips for their kids to read both books are confused. They don't see a problem. Some in the community are concerned that maybe the book Bless Me Ultima is too mature for freshmen, but it is on the state-approved list of freshman books, and people here acknowledge that perhaps in other cities in California these books would be fine, but perhaps not acceptable for kids in Laton. They'll have a decision on this by the start of the next school year.
Gene Hagenson live tonight in Laton. The Columbine shootings have made...
Did protests against a conviction.
Also a new effort to fight a drug problem of epidemic proportions.
Action News at 6 starts now.
Live, local, late breaking. This is Action News with Rich Rodriguez, Kate Mistel, Dan Taylor Sports, and Angelo Stollis with the weather. From Central California's news leader, this is Action News at 6.
Are these books dangerous? The Valley School Board thinks they may be. And what they plan to do about it has created controversy.
Teachers and students are upset that the board has removed the books from classrooms at Laton High School in southern Fresno County.
That's where Gene Hagenson is live with more on the story. Gene?
Well, these are the books, Bless Me Ultima and Fallen Angels. They're found in high schools throughout California. In fact, this is on the recommended reading list issued by the state, but they might be too much for kids in Laton to handle.
really saying good things about the general here.
Yes. The book, Bless Me Ultima, a story of a Mexican boy growing up, was being read in Carol Bennett's 9th grade English class until the school board took it away.
We were through chapter 9 when I was instructed to quit reading the books.
Her honors English class for 11th and 12th graders had been reading Fallen Angels, a book about black soldiers in Vietnam. The school district had problems with both books.
There are excerpts in the book, you know, that's pretty strong language. There's strong sexual content. There's issues about violence in there. And there's issues about witchcraft, too.
Both books do have elements of violence and profanity as key parts of the story.
It's just doctored up. It doesn't seem realistic without it. You know, you don't go through a war saying heck and darn.
Teacher Carol Bennett and Principal Dan Spence think both books are valuable, but the school board feels they could be a bad influence.
Violence, there's some very stringent violence in it. There's also witchcraft. And we just don't feel that with this kind of content that it's appropriate, especially for this age of students.
Now, the school board president, Delbert Mello, told us he hadn't actually read this book, but he'd looked at passages from it, and there's a Xerox copy with some highlighted obscenities, which taken individually have offended some people in the community. However, the educators believe that both of these books, despite the perhaps offensive portions, have an overall value that overrides that. However, the school board is setting the standards for Laton, and they're going to form a committee to decide if these books should be back in the classroom next year.
Gene, did parents know that their sons and daughters were reading these books?
Yes, this book, Fallen Angels, about black soldiers in the Vietnam War, was part of the honors English class for 11th and 12th graders, and before they read the book, permission slips were sent home. Now, this book, part of the recommended reading list by the state, as I said, was in the classroom as part of the regular curriculum, and when some complaints about it came in, the teacher sent home permission slips, and the kids brought them back, and they continued reading briefly until the school board decided to take it out of the classroom despite the permission slips.
Gene Higginson live at Laton High tonight. Thank you, Gene. The Colorado school massacre has put campus safety at the top of parents'